You're trying so hard to be happy, reading the books, doing the affirmations, choosing joy, and somehow, you're more miserable than ever. Because happiness became another thing you're failing at. What if chasing happiness is what's making you unhappy? What if trying to feel good all the time guarantees you'll feel terrible? What if the pursuit itself is the problem? Because you can't force happiness. And the harder you try, the further it gets. And you're stuck chasing something that only comes when you stop chasing. Welcome to Unfiltered Adulthood, where we explore the quiet psychological shifts that reshape you in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. If this resonates, subscribe and hit like. There's someone who decided to be happy, really committed to it. They read all the books. The ones about choosing joy, about gratitude practices, about manifesting positivity. They started a gratitude journal. Did morning affirmations. Chose to see the positive in everything. They were doing everything right. Following all the advice. Implementing all the strategies. And they felt worse. Not better. Worse. Because now, on top of whatever they were dealing with, they had the added pressure of needing to be happy about it. Of finding the silver lining. Of choosing joy even when joy felt completely inaccessible. Happiness became another item on the to-do list. Another metric of success. Another way to fail. They'd wake up and immediately check, am I happy? Am I choosing joy? Am I grateful enough? And when the answer was no, when they felt sad or anxious or just neutral, it felt like failure. Like they weren't doing it right. Like everyone else had figured out how to be happy and they were broken. The happiness industry had sold them a story. That happiness is a choice. That it's always available if you just think the right thoughts. That sadness is optional. That you can positive think your way out of any difficult emotion. And when that didn't work, when they were still struggling despite all the gratitude and affirmations and choosing, they blamed themselves. They started performing happiness. Posting about how blessed they were. How grateful. How they were choosing joy. And the performance felt hollow. Because underneath, they were still struggling. Still sad. Still anxious. But now they had to hide it. Because admitting you're not happy when you're supposed to be choosing happiness feels like admitting defeat. The pressure was constant. Every negative emotion became evidence of failure. Every bad day meant they weren't trying hard enough. Every moment of sadness was something to fix immediately. To reframe. To turn into a lesson. To find the positive in. They couldn't just feel bad. They had to make it productive. Make it mean something. Turn it into growth. And they were exhausted. Exhausted from trying to control their emotions. From forcing positivity. From performing gratitude. From pretending that thinking happy thoughts was enough to override genuine pain. The effort of trying to be happy all the time was making them miserable. They noticed something else. That the people who seemed genuinely content weren't the ones constantly working on their happiness. Weren't the ones posting about gratitude and choosing joy. They were just living. Not chasing anything. Not trying to force anything. Just being present with whatever they felt. Good or bad. And they started to realize something uncomfortable. That the pursuit of happiness was the problem. That trying to feel good all the time guaranteed feeling terrible. That making happiness the goal turned everything else into failure. Every moment that wasn't happiness became something wrong. Something to fix. Something that meant you were doing life incorrectly. The paradox was brutal. The more they wanted to be happy, the more elusive happiness became. The harder they chased it, the faster it ran. Because happiness isn't something you achieve. It's not a destination you reach by doing enough gratitude practices or saying enough affirmations. It's a byproduct. Something that happens when you're focused on something else entirely. They were so busy trying to be happy that they couldn't actually experience the moments that might bring happiness. They were so focused on the goal that they missed the journey. So obsessed with feeling good that they couldn't be present with what they actually felt. And presence is where happiness actually lives. Not in the future when you've finally mastered the practice, but in the messy, imperfect now. Because happiness isn't something you force. It's something you allow. And allowing means accepting that sometimes you feel bad. And that's okay. That life includes sadness and disappointment and frustration. And those feelings aren't failures. They're just feelings. They started experimenting. With not trying so hard. With letting themselves feel bad without immediately fixing it. With being sad without making it mean something about their character or their effort. And something unexpected happened. The feelings passed. Without intervention. Without affirmations. Without reframing. They just came and went. Like feelings do when you let them. They stopped the gratitude journal. Not because gratitude is bad. But because theirs had become performative. A way to prove they were doing happiness right. They stopped the morning affirmations. Because theirs felt like lies they were telling themselves. Trying to convince themselves of things they didn't believe. They let themselves have bad days. Without making those days evidence of failure. Without needing to extract a lesson or find a silver lining. Some days just sucked. And that was the whole truth. Not every difficult experience needs to be turned into growth. Sometimes things are just hard. And acknowledging that is more honest than forcing positivity. They noticed that when they stopped trying to control how they felt, they actually felt better. Not because they were doing happiness practices. But because they weren't adding the pressure of needing to be happy on top of everything else. They could just be. Whatever that looked like. Without judgment. Without performance. They learned to distinguish between toxic positivity and genuine well-being. Toxic positivity says you should always be happy, that negative emotions are wrong, that you can think your way out of any problem. Genuine well-being acknowledges the full range of human emotion. Includes space for sadness. Recognizes that some things genuinely suck and no amount of reframing changes that. They stopped comparing their insides to everyone else's outsides. Stopped believing that everyone else had figured out how to be happy all the time. Started recognizing that the people posting constantly about choosing joy might be the ones struggling most. That genuine contentment is usually quieter. Less performative, less desperate. And slowly, without trying, they found something better than happiness. Contentment. Peace. Acceptance. Not the forced kind. The genuine kind that comes from allowing life to be what it is instead of demanding it be something else. They learned that happiness comes and goes. That it's not meant to be a constant state. That the natural rhythm of human emotion includes highs and lows. And trying to stay high all the time is exhausting and impossible. That contentment is steadier. More sustainable. Less dependent on circumstances. They stopped treating their emotions like problems to solve. Started treating them like information. Like weather. Passing through. Not permanent. Not requiring immediate action. Just present. And that acceptance created more peace than all the happiness practices combined. They realized the happiness industry thrives on making you feel like you're doing it wrong. That if you're not happy, you need another book, another practice, another framework. That your unhappiness is a failure that needs fixing. When sometimes, unhappiness is just a reasonable response to difficult circumstances. And the fixing is what's creating the problem. You're trying so hard to be happy. Reading the books. Doing the affirmations. Choosing joy. And you're more miserable than ever. Because happiness became another thing you're failing at. Another standard you can't meet. Another way to be not enough. Chasing happiness is what's making you unhappy. Trying to feel good all the time guarantees you'll feel terrible. The pursuit itself is the problem. Because you can't force happiness. The harder you try, the further it gets. You're chasing something that only comes when you stop chasing. What if you let yourself off the hook? Stop demanding constant happiness. Accepted that life includes difficult emotions, and that's not a failure. Let yourself feel bad sometimes without making it mean you're doing life wrong. Stopped performing positivity and started being honest about how you actually feel. Happiness isn't a choice. Or a practice. Or something you manifest. It's a byproduct of living a life aligned with your values. Of being present. Of accepting reality instead of demanding it be different. And peace comes from giving up the exhausting pursuit of constant happiness and accepting the full range of human experience instead.